Welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 mistakes beginner dropshippers make, and this is going to apply to everyone that isn't doing this basically for a living. We're going to talk about the 5 most common mistakes that most people don't even think about, and for sure YouTubers and e-commerce people online aren't even talking about because they are basics, but it's where people seem to be failing and what's really hindering you guys and me too, but I do all these things, from growing our businesses online. And it's probably the biggest thing stopping you from pursuing something like dropshipping, e-commerce, or just having a Shopify store with whatever you plan on doing and being successful with it. So before we get into these 5, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. There's a wealth of information and knowledge in this channel and coming to this channel. Everything's free, not going to sell you a course. It's going to be a journey about how I'm getting financially free, how I want to retire at a fairly early age, and how I plan on self-sustaining and doing that, and just a guide to everything you can do to copy what I'm doing so that you can best position yourself to be successful in life. And guys, I know that most of you guys are going to jump at some point during the video and you're not going to watch the whole thing. I highly recommend at least staying till number 4. Number 4 is probably the most important thing, and it's like the most critical piece of what we talk about in this video. Without further ado, the number 1 on our list, this is the easiest one to talk about and the fastest just to do, is starting an LLC around your business if you are in the United States. You absolutely need to do this to protect yourself from being sued and everything that comes along with that. It goes without saying this is something you should do when you start any type of business, to separate your personal assets with your business assets. So if something goes wrong on the business side, that somebody can't take your personal assets if you are liable for whatever you're doing. Now you might think that you are immune to everything, and this can go as far as if your website isn't compliant for something in a state that requires compliance, or some type of, let's say, ADA requirement, you could get sued and your personal assets could be at risk. You are more at risk than you think. I'm not trying to fearmonger. Just start an LLC. It isn't that expensive to do so. Number 2 on our list is not doing enough product research. I hear time and time again from everyone that's asking me for advice outside of this YouTube channel, because I'm just starting the YouTube channel. You know, I've started a business and my product isn't selling. So if the person has done their marketing funnel, their sales strategy, their consumer research, and that's done all correctly, even bad products most of the time will sell. Now, if you've got no traction whatsoever and you've got the perfect funnels and everything else set in place, you have to ask yourself, is my product right? And when it comes down to it, most people don't realize that 90% of your time needs to be spent specifically on the product and doing product research with your market, and 10% of the time is everything else that comes along with that. And if you aren't feeling that model, you're doing something wrong. And I promise you, even if you were madly successful at this, first off, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're not spending 90% of your time on your product, you haven't picked the right product, or you haven't spent the time to look for the product. So even if you're making money doing this, or you're just starting and you do all this activity, I promise you, if you've only spent 50% of your time on your product isn't right, most likely. You did not get lucky. Someone else beat you to it, because there are better people out here than you are, than I am. That's just the reality of the world. And with such an open market like e-commerce, you're fighting the best of the best. So 90% of your time goes on your product. Pick the right product. And even spending 90% of your time on your product isn't always going to give you the right product, but it's going to give you the best use case and the best chances of potentially being successful with that product. Number 3 is like the biggest one you see on all the forums and all the groups surrounding dropshipping, e-commerce, anything with a Shopify store. People rush and build a store, start the store, launch the store, and then they go to these forums and groups and ask, why am I not getting sales? And what people don't realize is you can't just start a store and expect people to spend money on it. You can't even expect them to know your store exists. E-commerce and dropshipping, unless you create a very, very blatant solution to a problem that's not solved, you're not going to have a lot of organic growth without putting yourself out there. Now, organic growth, it isn't even organic because you're producing content that will organically get you sales. It just means you're not spending to then get customers to spend for you. The reality, though, is that's what you've got to do. You now need to go sell your product. You can't just expect that people are going to all of a sudden visit your store because you've started a store and you've got a product ready to go. You're just at the tippy toes of what you need to do now. Now you need to put your marketing hat on and your entrepreneurial hat on, or your salesperson hat on, and you need to go out and sell your product. So number 4 is probably the most key thing that a lot of people don't realize, and this is not even just beginners, this is everybody. They don't fully calculate their profit margins. Now that might sound dumb, but you need to do proper business analytics, business forecasting, profit forecasting, profit and dollar analysis, not just around your product, but around your business. So 3 ways people fail here. They don't properly price out their product, meaning they fail during shipping, they don't budget in enough returns and, product replacement. They don't figure that out. So they fail and the product alone isn't successful. The second time people fail is they create a successful product, but it doesn't cover the cost of the labor associated with either selling it, whether it's point of sale, whether it's supporting the product because you have to have a warehouse, or it's just you and maybe somebody else, because at any point when you're successful, you're going to be so much volume that you won't be able to do it yourself. So at some point, your labor is going to become involved, but your product wasn't designed initially to have enough margin to cover the labor associated with actually shipping out whatever quantity is, because your economies of scale is always going to go down. It'll go up for a period, but when you get to the point where it's large enough where you're like, I could do this for a living, at that point you need labor because just the volume of business that you're doing and your economies of scale goes down. The third place people fail with understanding the numbers around selling a product is you can't cover your fixed costs. Maybe your product is successful and profitable, but it's not profitable in the overall terms of your business. This could be your insurance. This could be the place that you do business if you rent a place or you rent an office or something like this. That could be just your filing fees or the income tax you have to pay or whatever. It could be the cost of the equipment you use. Your computer has to be replaced every so many years. Your printer, your printing supplies. You'd be surprised. All of those things come together and they actually add up depending on what your business is. Shipping supplies. Sometimes people forget that just because they're seeing a profit and loss statement on their advertising account, they lose track of all the fixed costs that they have around their business, and all of a sudden they put all this work in and they still end up negative, or they break even after a full year's of work. They've put 2,040 hours into their year of work or whatever. They work crazy days and they realize they haven't made any money. So number 4, make sure you're doing the full lifespan of costs around your business to make sure the product makes sense for you. Number 5, this is the golden thing that everybody fails to look at the get-go, and something that a lot of seasoned entrepreneurs like myself look at the very beginning. Sometimes you do find these niches where you're like, I could make a killing, there's money to be taken, and I promise you, I've done that, and I've made the quick dollar, but the reality is, after 6 months, after 12 months, after 2 years, I regret it because I've hit a ceiling on my growth potential. So number 5 is understanding what your growth potential is, what your market size is, and how you pivot from what you're doing to actually be profitable about the business. There's nothing worse than scaling a business to find out that your growth ceiling is just over the ceiling where you take the next step in economies of scale, meaning that your fixed costs start to far outpace your income and your profitability and the growth in volume before you have to add additional labor. That's the sweet spot about where you start making real money. The worst thing that can happen is you can find out that you're selling to the largest portion of the community, which might sound amazing because you have a monopoly, but it doesn't get bigger than that. The more spend you do, it doesn't necessarily mean the more sales you're going to get, because there's no more people to advertise to. And you might say, oh, that's a ridiculous statement. There's plenty of people out there. There's a fixed amount of people that are in the niche that you're selling your product. And if the niche is bigger than that, you'll never be able to compete. That's what big business is doing. And you're never going to compete with Walmart, Amazon, and things like that. You might be part of what they're doing, and then inherently you're not doing the whole entrepreneurial thing. Maybe you are, but you're going to be paying them essentially. If you're doing the free market thing where you've got your own Shopify, you need to be attacking niches because you can't compete on a global platform. So getting into your business, make sure you fully understand what your growth potential is, and make sure that you're making an assessment of, does that make sense for me 2 years down the line? If I'm successful, where does my business go? Because I'm actually, to be honest, currently experiencing that with one of my businesses, where I'm realizing that the growth potential and the costs associated with getting there, they're not as attractive as I once thought they were going to be, because I didn't think the labor costs of getting there were as high as they actually are. Part of that is a reflection of coming out of COVID. Things are just much more expensive, and I actually don't forecast them actually going down anytime soon. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you learned something, let me know in the comment section below. And certainly if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. We're still a small channel. I'll be answering absolutely every comment that you guys have. And I'll see you guys in the next video, because there's lots to learn here, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.